You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Coming up, Oklahoma asked the state's highest court to set execution dates for 25 inmates.
Another day, another 4-state temperature record. We've got another hot one on our hands, the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And we introduce you to members of a World War II battalion who are getting the recognition they deserve. All that and more coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. Drivers in Crawford County may have to take a different route for the next couple of days. This actually started yesterday. 260th from 160 Highway to 126 Highway will be closed to through traffic for railroad crossing repairs. Officials say these repairs will take about 2 days to complete, weather permitting. Authorities have paused their search for a man missing at the Grand Falls in Joplin. The search began shortly before 5 on Tuesday afternoon. Authorities received a report that a man had went over the falls and did not resurface. Reddings Mill and Neosho Water Rescue provided support in that area, and further downstream, Galena, Kansas Water Rescue entered the water near Shimmerhorn Park in Cherokee County. Joplin Fire Deputy Chief Andy Nimmo says they called off the search Tuesday night because the water was swift and dangerous, and they're asking everyone to avoid the area. The search will resume this morning under the direction of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Missouri Governor Mike Parson signs a bill on property rights. The legislation deals with the seizure of private land for public projects. Measure will require farm owners to be paid at least 150% of market value if their properties are taken through eminent domain. Now, this law only applies to new projects. Oklahoma's Attorney General asked the state's highest appeals court to set execution dates for 25 death row inmates. This comes after a federal judge's rejection of their challenge to the state's lethal injection method. 25 similar filings with the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals on Friday. Attorney General John O'Connor wrote that the federal court stays of execution are no longer in place. Therefore, there are no longer any legal impediments to executing the inmates who have exhausted their appeals. Well, there is new hope of progress on gun control as Senate negotiators say they could finish writing bipartisan firearms legislation this week. And more support from the GOP seems to indicate it has the numbers to pass a vote in the Senate. Naomi Ruckham explains what's inside the bill as families mark a solemn anniversary in Buffalo, New York.
Families gathered near a supermarket in Buffalo, New York last night, remembering the 10 lives taken in a racially motivated attack exactly 1 month ago.
I do feel a little better by coming up here because I don't eat and sleep very much.
The mass shooting in Buffalo, along with the Texas elementary school massacre of 19 children and 2 teachers, are prompting lawmakers to come to the table on new gun legislation. In a major bipartisan step forward, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says he will support a framework for gun reform, pledging to bring the bill to the Senate floor as soon as possible. His vote seems to indicate enough GOP support to overcome any filibuster in the Senate.
I think it's progress for the country, and I think that the bipartisan group has done the best they can to get total support.
The breakthrough legislation would require enhanced background checks for gun buyers under 21. New funding would support mental health and school security programs. And the bill would crack down on criminals who illegally purchase and traffic firearms.
Right now, people are working hard to put this framework into legislative language. The goal is to have that done in the coming days, and I hope that we'll be able to vote to pass this next week.
Later today, 2 separate House and Senate committees will meet to discuss the impact of gun violence. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News.
Attorney General Merrick Garland will be in Buffalo today, meeting with family members of the 10 victims killed at a grocery store there last month. In both the Buffalo and Texas shootings, the alleged gunmen were 18 years old. Well, if your KOAM or Fox 14 signal becomes glitchy next week, it's a sign of progress. We'll be broadcasting from a lower temporary antenna while a crew installs a new, more technically advanced antenna at the top of our tower. It's the final step in our More Power project. This will allow some viewers who previously lost our signal to receive us once again. If everything goes according to plan, we'll be back up and stronger than ever by the end of June. With summer finally here, it's time to fire up the grill and pour yourself a cold glass of milk. That's right. June is National Dairy Month, and according to a new survey from the dairy company Fairlife, more than half of Americans polled say milk is their drink of choice to cool down on a hot summer day, as long as it's cold milk. In addition, nearly 3/4 of Americans polled say they still prefer dairy milk over the alternatives. I have one child that's all he wants to drink is milk, and the other one that I can hardly get to touch it.
I did not know that it was, is it National Milk Day, or are we just doing Dairy Month?
I guess just dairy.
Well, I was thinking about the jobs that you and I hold, and how it relates to a movie, and how it relates to heat, and how it relates to milk.
You're gonna have to give me some more.
Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy.
Okay.
It's so bleeping hot. Milk was a bad choice. Do you remember that when he's walking down the sidewalk?
Yeah, I love milk, but I don't really crave milk when I'm hot.
The only thing I can think of
Yeah.
while you're reading that story is with the temperatures outside, like milk, just sounds good at my kitchen table.
Yeah, when you're inside in an air-conditioned
Yeah,
area.
and then I thought about Ron Burgundy, and I'm like, oh yeah, the scene where he's walking down the sidewalk and he just yells, "Milk was a bad choice."
Yeah.
I appreciate you playing along with that one. I'm gonna have that stuck in my head for the rest of the day now. I'm gonna have to go home and watch the movie probably just to get it out of my head. All right, Tanya, we are coming off of a June 14th record for what we call the record warm low. And so once again, what that means is yesterday we bottomed out at 80 degrees. You'll notice this morning we actually slipped below 80. So Tanya, there we go. You're asking me if we get down to 70 today. Yes. Technically this morning we do have a 79 on the board. But if we go back to the entirety of June 14th, yesterday, we only bottomed out at 80 degrees. Well, that is warmer than the record of 79 that was set in 1981. So what that means is for back-to-back days, on the June the 13th and June the 14th, we set record warm low temperatures. And average high this time of year should only be 86. We're going to skirt right through that into the 90s once again. 79 right now as we look over 7th and range line, wind gusting 30 miles per hour. And despite the fact that we've got the wind and we've got the warm temperatures, we actually do not have any advisories, watches, or warnings up on the board. Just a little light cloud cover, even as you sink down toward Tulsa where the clouds get a little thicker. No precipitation to be worried about, and we'll be on the dry side, and that also too, that means the humidity is going to stick around as well. That color contour of that heat wave, it just didn't want to budge right there, right along the jet stream. Just has continued to ride that here for really, past 3 days. And even though the heat has pushed eastwardly, we're still just on that west edge of it, and it's not going to leave us alone to the tune of, how about the 90s all the way into Father's Day weekend. As a matter of fact, usually when we have any type of rain percentages on a 7-day forecast like this, and anything that we do see for tonight and tomorrow is going to be north of Highway 54. But anything that we do see, we hope for a little cold front on the backside of it, kind of temper those numbers a little bit. Not this time. Look at this, 93, 94, 95 by the time we get to Saturday.
All right, thanks, Michael. Up next, the FDA gives the go-ahead for the first ever approved treatment for alopecia. Later, we meet a 10-year-old boy who opens a lemonade stand for a very sweet reason. This is a story you don't want to miss. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. In Health Watch this morning, millions of Americans suffer from alopecia areata. It's an autoimmune skin disease which causes hair loss, but the FDA has now approved the first ever treatment for the disorder. And it treats the entire body, not just a specific bald patch. Mandy Gaither has more on what this means for those who struggle with this disease.
This is a historic day for the alopecia areata community.
It's called Olumiant, a pill taken by mouth, the first ever treatment for alopecia areata that's gotten the green light from the FDA.
Imagine having this disease, a disease that alters your appearance practically overnight. And you've never had treatment options until now.
Alopecia areata is a common autoimmune disorder where the body attacks hair follicles, often causing hair to fall out in clumps. The FDA says Olumiant blocks an enzyme that leads to inflammation that can trigger the body's response. The drug manufacturer held 2 clinical trials, including patients with at least 50% scalp hair loss for more than 6 months. Those given 4 milligrams of the treatment daily saw the most improvement. In the first trial, 35% of more than 280 patients had what was described as adequate scalp hair coverage compared to 5% given a placebo. In the second trial, 32% of more than 230 patients who got 4 milligrams had positive hair growth compared to 3% of the 156 patients who got a placebo.
It provides choice and it provides hope for the patient community.
Common side effects included an upper respiratory tract infection, acne, high cholesterol, urinary tract infection, fatigue, yeast infections, anemia, abdominal pain, shingles, and weight gain.
The treatment comes with a boxed warning for serious infections, mortality, malignancy, major heart events, and thrombosis. Treatment was initially approved by the FDA to treat rheumatoid arthritis. Doctors also sometimes use it to treat patients hospitalized with COVID-19. Well, more and more Americans will soon be spending time in the water, which means parents will need to keep a very close eye on their kids when around the pool or beachside. Doctors from the Cleveland Clinic say some tips to keep in mind include having 1 designated adult per child, as lifeguards at public pools or beaches may be busy keeping their eyes on multiple people. They also say drowning can happen abruptly and can sometimes go unnoticed. Young swimmers especially should be kept at arm's length by an adult. It's also recommended that adults know CPR and to learn it if you don't already know it. Finally, don't forget to take breaks from swimming, stay hydrated, and apply sunscreen regularly. So while we're talking about sunscreen, according to a Cleveland Clinic dermatologist, sun exposure occurs the most in childhood. Just 1 childhood sunburn can increase the risk of melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer. Dermatologists urge parents to make sure their kids are wearing plenty of sunscreen and say adding a good coat that requires rubbing in really matters. Waxy sunscreen sticks and sunscreen spray are also good options for protection. In Wisconsin, the Lake Geneva Cruise Line holds its 106th Mailboat Jumper Tryouts on Tuesday. 10 teens jumped into action, hoping to earn one of 4 highly coveted spots on this season's Mailboat Jumping Team.
Holy Jiminy!
Whoa. Possibly it's the coolest summer job in the state. The teens are all either high school or college aged and have already been employed by the cruise line for a year. Lake Geneva is one of only a handful of places in the country where mail is still delivered by boat.
I don't get it.
What happens if the mailbox sticks?
And it sure cannot be safe.
Jump off and jump on.
Oh my goodness. Well, what about this kid right here?
He didn't make the team.
He did not, no.
He did not make the team. Watch him. Is this the one? Nope. Sorry, dude. You don't make the boat, you don't make the team.
Do they just leave you?
Well, I
and
mean,
tryouts continue on?
I guess so.
And they're like, best of luck, kid. Better luck next year. Folks, do not try that at home. Do not let your kids try that. I feel like we need to have a public service announcement about this.
It must be a requirement for these boaters, like, hey,
you're seeing the
we're
risk,
delivering, your mailbox better be well oiled.
you are
and
seeing
ready
the
to go.
risk-adverse parent come out in Michael right now. That is ridiculous.
Well, I'm sure they go back and get you or make you wait until they turn around. Or maybe you're just stuck. You have to get off the dock and find your own way home.
Don't jump off of moving boats, folks.
Hey, this is Wisconsin.
Okay. All right, let's do this. Let's go over 7th and Range Line, because I'm just like that's just driving me up a wall watching kids do that. It's like if you're an adult and you want to do it on your own, that's your own choice. I mean, I don't know why we. Okay, 79 degrees abound. We've got 180 right now in Chanute, but to remember, the key factor for today is where we're headed, all the way up into the 90s. Feel about like in between 97 and 99. With that being said, we do not have any heat advisories or wind advisories in effect right now. Expect the reemergence, at least of the heat advisories, as we warm up to 93, 94, and then 95 by the time we get to Saturday. Back with more KOAM morning news on Fox 14. Sans teenage kids jumping on moving boats right after this. There's a 10-year-old in Illinois who's helping his older sister. His older sister has stage 4 cancer, and he's helping her complete her bucket list. He's doing it with 1 cup of lemonade at a time. Paige Blanzy with the story.
Lemonade, 50 cents.
Most kids spend their summers saving up money from their lemonade stand to buy a new toy, but not Peyton Wilkie.
It's for my sister. We're just doing all we can for her.
His 22-year-old sister has stage 4 stomach cancer. All the money he earns is going toward his sister's bucket list, a family trip to New York.
We know our time is becoming limited.
All her treatments have stopped. Now they're trying to live each day to the fullest and complete items on her bucket list.
One of her wishes right now is she wants to make a trip to, it's upstate New York. We used to go like every summer.
10-year-old Peyton has made it his mission to help his family afford a week-long road trip.
We don't get that much money, so I am helping out my family so they can have money.
Although this cup is only 50 cents, Wilkie's already made progress toward his goal.
We're at about $2.20 in a week.
His mother, Laura Wilkie, estimates the trip will cost $3,000, but that isn't intimidating Peyton.
He's always been big sister's little buddy. I know it's a lot for him to kind of understand everything that's going on, but if he can help, he wants to help.
Peyton says he's been overwhelmed by support from the community.
It makes me happy that people care about other people in the world.
And after he's raised enough for the trip, he plans to spend some money on himself.
Great gesture by that young man right there, and I think I was really impressed too that it wasn't just lemonade, but he looked like a old-fashioned Little League concession stand out there with the blow pops and the chips, and that's truly amazing by that young man. Future track, we know we're going to be up into the 90s here later today with the strong south wind. On the 7-day forecast, we talk about a little chance for rain. Let's kind of break that down here. There you go. It's very sporadic, very isolated. We will stay with a limited lightning risk for the rest of the late night into Thursday morning. You're really going to have to get on the north side of Highway 54, though. So the majority of the 4 states remaining very, very dry and really done by Thursday morning. On Friday, we're going to keep our eyes up to the north right here. Good system develops over Kansas City, and we want to see how much southerly sag this has to it, because right now it wants to skirt off to our southeast. So we're not even going to put that in the 7-day forecast, but that's just something that we will be monitoring here over the next 48 hours. Weather trend for today, a little bit more cloud cover than what we've had past couple of days. It really doesn't slow us down heat-wise, certainly, as we find ourselves in the oppressive category. And believe it or not, look at the right-hand side. Next week's average high temperature actually going to be hotter than this week's average high by the time it's all said and done. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
It's time to honor today's 4-state hero, Robert Smith. Sergeant Smith served in the Army from 1942 to 1945. He was stationed in England and France with the 82nd General Hospital. He went from a male nurse to a sergeant during his service, and it was his honor to help the wounded of the war. Native of Anderson, Missouri, we thank you, today's 4-state hero, Robert Smith. Well, a special honor for World War II soldiers in Hawaii. It is the 80th anniversary of the 100th Infantry Battalion, an Army unit of mostly second-generation Japanese-American soldiers. These men fought enemies overseas while dealing with distrust at home. And now, years later, they're recognized as heroes. Annalisa Burgos has their story.
We were dubbed the Purple Heart Battalion, and you're known worldwide for this selfless sacrifice because you protected your teammates and you protected our country. You fought for our freedom.
Kathy Hayashi's father was a member of the 100th Infantry. It's her mission to keep their legacy alive and honor the few still living, like 98-year-old Takashi Manago. She says it's important we always remember their sacrifice.
They were not trusted, and you were treated as second-class citizens. Many of them were plantation workers, right? Second-class citizens. Just because they look like the enemy, that was the only reason why they were pulled out of the Hawaii National Guard.
Hayashi presented Manago with gifts.
Loyalty to the United States is not a matter of race or ancestry.
While Manago's grandsons, Caleb and Luke, read excerpts from congratulatory certificates from Governor David Ige, Hawaii's congressional delegation, and the state legislature.
You are a true patriot who fought courageously for our freedom.
Granddaughter Camille read a special commendation from President Joe Biden. Manago was overcome by the recognition.
From the president, oh, I never thought he hits me right in the, you know what? Oh, I feel overwhelmed with all this.
Manago was born in Captain Cook on Hawaii Island and attended the University of Hawaii before he was drafted in 1944. He and his two older brothers joined the 100th Infantry Battalion's Company A and served in Italy.
Oh, he's no good, no matter where.
His daughters Bev and Jenny shared some of his stories during today's commemoration.
But was unaware that their final destination would be Italy.
I learned that my grandpa was very naughty and rascal in his earlier years. Yeah, and how much of an impact he had on the war.
I've always heard bits and pieces of his stories, but never in a full chronological order.
Stories about a very special band of brothers. Memories the Manago Ohana hopes will live on in future generations. Just 12 of the about 1,400 original members are still alive. Another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, a star professional wrestler receives his third driving under the influence charge. And a sober driving advocate wants to know why this is happening again. And supply chain issues have once again created a product shortage. This time it's tampons. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:32. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Authorities capture an escaped inmate. The Berry County, Missouri Sheriff's Office has just reported authorities have captured Lance Stevens, the last of 3 men who broke out of the Berry County Jail earlier this month. He was captured in San Antonio, Texas. Authorities had previously captured the other 2 escapees. Christopher Blevins, caught near Casper, Wyoming, and Matthew Crawford was found in Springfield. Police in Aurora, Missouri investigate the death of a couple. Police chief says a neighbor got a call asking him to call 911 for help. When officers arrived at the home at 1642 Oak Drive, they found the man and woman both dead from gunshot wounds. Police say there is no threat to the public. Authorities are searching for a suspect who allegedly stole numerous sport bikes. Officials from the Neosho Police Department say 21-year-old Charlton Dragan is suspected of stealing multiple sport bikes in recent weeks. They say he has met with sellers and then asked them to test drive their bikes. He then allegedly takes their bikes and never returns them. Authorities are asking anyone with information on Dragan to contact the Neosho Police Department. Voters in Columbus, Kansas yesterday decided to renew a half-cent sales tax. It helps to fund emergency services, water and sewer drainage, and other things. The vote was 175 yes to 27 no. When you have a block party in Carl Junction, you call it a Bulldog Block Party. Folks had the chance to enjoy CJ's second Tuesday event on Main Street. There was food trucks, business booths, water balloons, popsicles, and live music, among other fun things.
It brings people to Carl Junction, that maybe don't live here, but I think there's also this sense of community. Carl Junction has a great community, and everyone, a lot of families, so something to do downtown, whether it be bounce houses for the kids, family fun, games.
The national champion Carl Junction Elementary Archery team sold raffle tickets and accepted donations for the world competition. With this intense heat, it's important to remember to stay safe from heat exhaustion. Symptoms include heavy sweating, cold, pale, and clammy skin, and muscle cramps. Experts say you should get medical help right away if there is vomiting, if symptoms get worse or last longer than an hour, or if confusion develops.
So the biggest thing to do if you start experiencing any of those symptoms would be to try and get out of the environment that you're in. So either get out of the direct sunlight, or if you can, get into somewhere that is cool, that has some cooler air. Typically, before you have to come to the hospital, if you can drink sips of water or try and cool yourself off, that would be the best thing to do.
You can find a list of area cooling centers on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Happy Tuesday from the Oregon Zoo. The Oregon Zoo and its 2 giraffes, Desi and Buttercup, are here to wish everyone a happy Tuesday. The fan favorite residents of the Africa Savanna habitat graced Twitter on Tuesday. In a clip of the pair munching on some celebratory heads of lettuce and carrots, using their extra long tongues to grab the snacks right out of the keeper's hands.
It'd be pretty cool to feed a giraffe.
Yeah.
I've never done that. Look at that. That's amazing. I was hoping when I saw the slug giraffe, I was hoping it was going to be a baby giraffe. I forget who it was. I want to say it may have been Kirk Cousins, quarterback. He once described, I've heard 2 quarterbacks described as running like baby giraffes. One of them, Tom Brady, and the other one, Josh Allen. Just because, Allen's so long and lanky. Like when he's such an athlete, but when he goes to take off, it's like those first initial steps. You're kind of like, oh, that looks a little bit odd, and then it gets going.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why I was hoping it was a baby giraffe, but which is funny because we had the conversation the other day about how I don't like to watch people eat. I have nothing wrong with that. Just humans, I guess. Temperatures right now, high 70s, low 80s, gusting close to 30 miles per hour at Joplin Regional Airport. The highest gust we picked up was actually pre-sunrise, and that thing was up to 35 miles per hour. There's a look at our wind tracker. The heat wave still squarely over the Midwest, sinking all the way to the Atlantic coast and now down to the southeast. That being said, we are able to avoid any heat-related watches, warnings, or even advisories, as those are now sitting off to our east. You can tell that's going to be extremely uncomfortable for them. Our heat index readings are going to be in between 97 and 99 this afternoon. We'll see a triple digit every now and then as far as what it feels like. It just won't be as widespread as what we've had past couple of days, but that's going to quickly change because by the time we get to the 7-day forecast, we're going to roll temperatures from 93 to 95 as we head toward Father's Day weekend. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. This morning on the KOAM News Now Insta poll on our Facebook page, Mother Nature's Wrath as a statewide disaster is declared in Montana. You're looking at the Yellowstone River devour everything in its path. The river, the highest it's been in more than a century. Relentless rains, rapid snowmelt, it's equaled up to 2 to 3 months worth of precipitation. So now you have catastrophic flooding across the region. You've had some 10,000 visitors evacuate. And to top it off, they're now in the midst of a massive heat wave. Our specific question for you this morning, has Mother Nature ever ruined your travel plans? It's been pretty close all morning long. 54% of you say no, she has yet to get in your way. 46% say yep, you know that experience. Each and every morning, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. That delivers you right to the poll. You can also connect to us via our Facebook page at KOAM News Now. Star professional wrestler Jeff Hardy has been charged with driving under the influence in Florida, his 3rd time facing a DUI charge. Gail Pascal Brown introduces us to a former wrestler and sober driving advocate who lost his daughter to a drunk driver. And he demands to know how all this was allowed to happen again.
The Florida Highway Patrol arrested 44-year-old Jeff Hardy Monday morning in Volusia County for driving under the influence in violation of a driver's license restriction and driving while license suspended. Hardy is a former WWE professional wrestler who's now with All Elite Wrestling of Jacksonville, Florida.
I happen to know Jeff and his brother personally, but this isn't personal. This is a man who's made the decision at least 3 times now in the past 10 years to drive while impaired.
The arrest report says Jeff Hardy was convicted on 2 other separate DUIs from March 2018 and October 2019 in North Carolina. Bill DeMott is a former professional wrestler, too, who is founder of the Carrie Ann Foundation. His daughter, Carrie Ann, was killed almost 7 years ago by a repeat DUI offender. When FHP caught up to Jeff Hardy, he was merging from Interstate 4 onto northbound I-95 in a Dodge Charger that was traveling significantly under the speed limit, weaving across travel lanes and running off the shoulder of the roadway.
The license is revoked. So we'd like to know, how did he get the rental car? Who allowed him to use the rental car? And why is he driving?
The report also says Hardy was unsteady on his feet, reeked of alcohol, and was confused. Through conversations with the driver, it was learned that he had been drinking earlier in the day. Hardy was arrested just before 10 a.m.
When does it become important? When a life is lost?
FHP says Jeff Hardy's first breath sample was a .294, almost more than 3.5 times the legal limit.
The arrest report says Hardy had a driving restriction requiring him to have an interlock device in his car, something the rental car did not have. Be back with consumer news right after this.
And Consumer Watch, according to a new report from Bloomberg Intelligence, Volkswagen could sell more electric cars than Tesla by the year 2024. VW has been saying for years it intends to eventually do that. And the analysis suggests the two automakers will battle to be the leader in global EV sales over the next few years. Volkswagen Group has 10 different brands under its control, ranging in price and prestige from Volkswagen to Bentley. And that means it can sell a variety of electric models worldwide, including the Volkswagen ID.3 compact car, the ID.4 SUV, and the Porsche Taycan. Tesla's limited number of models leaves it vulnerable to Volkswagen's breadth in lineup and pricing. Europe and China will be especially important to deciding EV leadership in the coming years. Regulations in both markets heavily favor electric vehicles. Global supply chain issues are creating another shortage, this time tampons. Mahalani Richardson has details on how this is impacting folks in Hawaii.
At Oahu stores, there were some empty shelves for tampons while there was enough supply of pads. Hawaii News Now spoke with a teen who uses tampons, and she's worried about the shortage.
My menstrual cycle is like part of something like I deal with every month. If I didn't have those, I would feel like really sick and all that kind of stuff because like I don't like to feel dirty.
It's a very like, come on, man. Like, you know, if it's not one thing, it's in another.
Women may not be able to find their preferred brands because of the shortage.
There's more specific holes on shelves than you might see in the aisle. Like, you know, our couple at Target, the aisles are always beautiful, zoned, all the boxes are face forward, and so you notice those holes a little bit more.
Sarah Milianta Laffin is a teacher at Ilima Intermediate. She hopes there's enough supply when school starts back up in the fall.
I want to make sure my kids have what they need this school year to learn.
One thing we saw for sure was a change in the prices.
Ma'i Movement Hawaii is a nonprofit that's trying to end period poverty and says prices of tampons and other feminine products are going up.
We also got a picture from, one of our volunteers in Feb 2021. And, it was at CVS Couple A. She took a picture of, a box of tampons and, showing, the prices and the counts. And a year later, I took the same picture and, there were less tampons and they were more expensive.
Manufacturers say the shortage is temporary, but offered no timeline for when it will improve. This year, the Hawaii legislature passed a bill to approve $2 million each year in period products to public and charter schools. We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell.
You know what they say about those dudes in Texas, big old tough guys. Well, one man in Texas has resorted to wielding a pool noodle for protection against his overly aggressive pet. Jeannie Moose with the story on the noodle that's even gone to his head, literally.
Extent. Bet you've never seen a pool noodle used like this. A Texas man has weaponized the noodle to fend off a pet emu named Cosmo. This is no joke.
I turned my back and wham, he bites me right on top of the head, and it hurts pretty good.
Toby and Michelle Wilson have had these two emus since they hatched 5 years ago.
They were our babies. She would put sock diapers on them. They would run around inside.
Even swim in the pool. But once the birds had their own baby a few months ago... Yikes! Cosmo has gotten protective and aggressive. He seems okay with Michelle.
Say hi.
But Cosmo's not saying hi to Toby. He's charging him and his mower. Even on foot, Toby has to keep looking over his shoulder. It takes twice as long to mow the pasture due to the constant jousting. Things escalated when Michelle made her husband a noodle hat, hoping the emu would be deterred. By seeing something sticking out of his head.
I took a pool noodle, cut it in half, and just hot glued it to a cowboy hat.
The hat didn't help, but the videos have sure been a hit on TikTok. Toby says lots of commenters complain about his poor mowing technique, but you try mowing with a giant bird charging you. I want to hear the trash talk you use with Cosmo, the emu.
Oh, I tell him, I say, look, bird, you better get away. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm going to give you the noodle.
The noodle is all that stands between mowing and being mowed down. Jeannie Mose, CNN, New York.
So here's the best part. All those video credits go to Michelle, his wife. And so you know she just waits for lawn mowing day to come around. She just has to absolutely love it. Maybe the emu is very special to them. I bet people with pets, I get it. So I don't want to criticize that. It just seems like a little bit more of a hassle. But I think that's kind of Michelle's entertainment. She's like, honey, grass is getting a little bit long. You should go out there and jump on the mower so I can grab my phone. That is tremendous. All right, let's start with our humidity before we get to our wind and our temperature. Because what I want to point out is right out here in the western portion of Kansas, that is exactly where that dividing line is for the warmer temperatures and the reason why each and every day we've been creeping up with heat indices around 100, if not exceeding 100 degrees. And we'll be close to that today. I think we'll really range in between 97 and 99. We'll certainly see a few triple digits, not as widespread though as what we've had past couple of days. Temperatures right now, anywhere from 77 to about 81. Now, by the time it's all said and done, we will be in the low 90s. That chance for rain that you see there Wednesday into Thursday, it's going to be very, very isolated north of Highway 54. Not widespread, not severe. Then get ready for the mid-90s for the weekend. Be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. Today, a Food and Drug Administration panel will review Moderna and Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccines for children as young as 6 months old. The Biden administration says the shots could be available as soon as June 21st if they are approved. Yesterday, the panel voted to grant an emergency use authorization for Moderna's shot for children ages 6 through 17. Pfizer received the same approval last year. Well, today's hearing of the committee investigating the January 6th attack at the Capitol has been delayed. One House member told reporters the staff needs more time putting together the videos. The next hearing, now the third of 7 planned, is scheduled for tomorrow. That will focus on then President Trump's efforts to pressure his vice president to not certify the election results. Officials at Yellowstone National Park have ordered all visitors to leave due to historic flooding. Bridges and roads have been washed away. The raging river chipped away at the riverbank, sending this house diving into the water.
All right, remember, just because we don't have any heat advisories in effect for today does not mean that we can let our guard down. We want everybody to make sure you're hydrated, plenty of sunscreen, frequent breaks if you're going to be outside for prolonged periods of time, because even though you see 91, remember, we're going to feel in between 97, 99. Any rain that we do see overnight into Thursday morning, very isolated north of Highway 54. Then we begin our jaunt up into the mid-90s for Father's Day weekend.
All right. Well, Happy the elephant will hopefully live happily ever after at New York City's Bronx Zoo. New York's highest court rejected an animal rights group argument the female elephant was being illegally detained at the Bronx Zoo and should be transferred to a more natural environment. Her lawyers had filed a writ of habeas corpus, arguing she is a legal person. The Court of Appeals said Tuesday the pachyderm is not a person in a legal sense and therefore not entitled to a fundamental human right. The 51-year-old Asian elephant will remain at the zoo resident instead of going to a sanctuary. An elephant is not a human. That's what we learned.
So says you, and so says the court of law. I believe Happy's lawyers may disagree.
What about an emu?
Thank you for letting us put the good in your morning. No, they chase you on lawnmowers. Be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.